What tradition did your parents use to control you that backfired spectacularly? Every Sunday after church, my parents made me stand in front of our entire extended family and confess my sins from the week. They called it the cleansing circle, and it started when I was 6 years old. My dad would sit in his leather armchair like a king on a throne, while my mom handed out cups of lemonade to my aunts, uncles, and cousins. Then all eyes would turn to me, and I had to list everything I did wrong that week. Talked back to my mother, got a B on a spelling test, forgot to make my bed, didn't finish my vegetables. My family would nod solemnly, and my grandmother would read a Bible verse about obedience. Then my dad would assign my punishment, usually extra chores or losing TV privileges. My older sister never had to do this, neither did my younger brother. Just me, the middle child, the problem child, the one who needed to be fixed. For 15 years, I stood in that circle and confessed things I barely remembered doing. When I was 12, I admitted to stealing a candy bar from the gas station, and my dad made me work in his hardware store for 3 months without pay to learn the value of honesty. When I was 14, I confessed to looking at a girl's Instagram photos, and my mom took my phone for 6 months. The punishments never fit the crimes. My sister got caught sneaking out to meet her boyfriend at 16, and my parents laughed it off as teenage rebellion. My brother failed 3 classes sophomore year, and they hired him a tutor and bought him a new gaming computer to motivate him. But when I got a detention for being late to homeroom, my dad stood me in the circle and made me apologize to every family member individually for embarrassing our family name. I started to realize the cleansing circle wasn't about making me better, it was about making me smaller. When I turned 18, I told my parents I was done with the circle. My dad's face turned purple. He said if I didn't participate, I wasn't welcome at Sunday dinners anymore. Fine by me. But my grandmother called crying, saying I was breaking the family apart. My mom told relatives I was on drugs. My sister texted saying I was being selfish and dramatic. So I came back, head down, and confessed to the sin of pride. They smiled like they won something. I went to community college because my parents said they couldn't afford to send me anywhere else, even though they paid full tuition for my sister's private university. I worked 2 jobs and still showed up every Sunday to humiliate myself. Then last spring, I needed my birth certificate to apply for a passport. My mom said she would mail it to me, but weeks passed and nothing came. When I drove home to get it myself while everyone was at my cousin's graduation, I found a filing cabinet in my dad's office I had never noticed before. Inside were bank statements, investment accounts, and a folder with my name on it. My hands went cold. As I read through the pages, there was a trust fund set up by my grandfather before he died, $180,000 specifically designated for my education and future. The account had been drained over 12 years, withdrawal after withdrawal, going into my parents' checking account. The same grandfather who sat in that circle every Sunday watching me confess, who died when I was 15, still believing my parents were using his money to give me a better life. I found receipts too. My sister's tuition payments, my brother's gaming computer, a down payment on the lake house my parents bought when I was 16. My education fund paid for everyone's life except mine. I photographed everything, put the folder back exactly where I found it, and drove home without crying. I had 6 months to plan. Christmas dinner was always the biggest cleansing circle of the year. Every relative packed into my parents' dining room, and I was expected to give a year-end confession, the greatest hits of my failures. This year, I told my parents I wanted to do something special, a presentation showing my gratitude for everything they taught me. My mom actually teared up. She told my aunt I had finally grown up. When the time came, I connected my laptop to their new TV, the one I now knew my grandfather's money paid for. I started with photos of me in the circle over the years, a scared 6-year-old, a humiliated 12-year-old, an exhausted 18-year-old. My family smiled at the memories. Then I clicked to the next slide showing the trust fund documents. My dad knocked over his wine glass. This is what Grandpa left me, I said calmly. $180,000 for my future. Then I showed the withdrawal records, the receipts, the account transfers. My mom started screaming to turn it off, but my uncle, my grandfather's other son, stood up and told her to sit down and let me finish. By the end, my grandmother was sobbing, my uncle was demanding answers, and my father was trying to explain that he was teaching me the value of hard work. My uncle looked at him with disgust and said, "Grandpa would be ashamed of you." That was when my dad finally snapped. He pointed at me and shouted that I was an ungrateful little parasite who never deserved that money anyway, and everything they did was to keep me from turning out soft and useless. The room went silent. My uncle told my parents they were no longer welcome at any family gatherings. My grandmother handed me a check and apologized for not seeing it sooner. I walked out of that house for the last time, and I never looked back.